So a snooze fest in Bahrain, not a snooze fest in St. Petersburg, a late caution, and the philosophical issues of blinking in iRacing on today's FR Racing's Garage Talk. I'm DJ Flook.
Eric Richardson.
You know what? I am so glad that the Formula One season, all these improvements happened and everything was much more competitive. Oh, no, wait, no. It was a little more of the same, except that it seems like McLaren and Williams traded places.
Yeah. And I think it's a good indicator of how the season is setting up. We are one race into the season, and there's already talk about how early Verstappen can lock up the championship and how many races would be left. And then how funny it would be. Who is it? Ricardo. If he jumped in and ran the rest of the season, and in theory could finish third in the points.
That would be like
As the race driver.
Formula One would not be taken seriously anymore if that happened. I mean, that's just embarrassing. I mean, we saw more of the same.
And apparently Max said that he could still have another second per lap.
Yeah, he said that there were some minor issues with the car. It's like minor issues, dude. You were like 15 seconds ahead of your teammate. The question is, like, there's always the question. It's like, well, what would Max do if he was put in a Williams car or a McLaren car this year? Since they seem to have traded places.
Yeah, Williams scored a point.
Yeah, Williams scored a point. So the question is, you've got two Red Bull cars. Generally, the primary teammate gets slightly better equipment. Man, I'm not wearing a hat tonight. I'm regretting that decision.
Does it feel weird?
Yes. And I look down, my hair's sticking up in the back. So the question is, you have Max a little further back. There's Checo in second. How much of that is Max is getting better equipment versus Max is a better driver? Because I mean, he messed up. The Checo messed up the start. Like, that was not a great start by him.
Yeah, he had a bad start. Got mired there behind Leclerc,
who ended up having a bad day.
He had a bad day.
Had to change out. They had equipment change out. What was it? I am so tired.
I can't remember.
But they had to change something out already. It was like a power block or whatever the term is in Formula One. I'm drawing a blank here. It's late. But you get two of those per season without penalty. They used one before the first race. Then his, car broke down on the side of the road. And then, Mercedes is back there. But hey, Fernando Alonso, you've got Aston Martin and you got Fernando. They had one podium previous to this. Yeah, they've had one podium previous to this, and then Alonso comes in and finishes third, has a great day, looked good. 41 years old. Man is 41 years old.
And his teammate Stroll got through with his broken hand, and
he had two broken wrists. He's got the screws in. They showed in one of his time trials where he was like, instead of he couldn't grab onto the wheel with his left hand. He was like using his palm to turn the wheel. And
then they're talking about compromise turn one for better two, and he's like, I can't.
He goes, I can't, man. He's like, copy. But yeah, I mean, other than that was a total snooze fest. I'm so glad that didn't start at 5 a.m. my time like some of them do, because I had been very disappointed I had woken up for that.
Yeah, I watched start to finish, and I was excited for 2 laps when the field was essentially nose to tail, and then it's like, Max is 10 seconds in front. This is boring.
Then it's over. What wasn't boring was the IndyCar season kicked off.
St. Petersburg.
And wow. Not a great start. Not a great start for the drivers. I mean, it was exciting TV. We get that multi-car pileup. Was that lap one? That was lap one, wasn't it?
Lap one. Got red flagged.
Yep. And then you had another big one. And then you had Grosjean with Scott McLaughlin. McLaughlin came out of the pit, and then they both ended up in the wall of tires together.
Yeah, watching that one, it seemed like Grosjean had the line but I think McLaughlin tried to force it a little bit and ended up taking them both out instead of maybe just falling in with
Well,
what,
McLaughlin
10 laps to go.
he kept going after that. He got penalized. I'm pretty sure I heard he got penalized for that.
Yes.
And then yeah, that was an exciting moment. It's like coming out of the pits, but it's like he's he got one car on cold tires, the other one's got a lap on him, and it's almost like you kind of saw something like that was going to happen.
When they came out basically not quite side by side, but Grosjean in the draft, you knew he was going to be able to make the move.
And I was just thinking, I'm just watching this, I'm like, this is not going to end well. You can't race on cold tires coming out of a pit stop with a guy who's been out there for a lap already. It's just This isn't going to go well, and it certainly didn't. But not for McLaughlin. Well, not as much for McLaughlin.
We saw a rarity in this race too, or at least on road courses with Indy cars. 2 cars got airborne.
Yes, they did.
DeFrancesco on lap 1 got basically punted, and you saw him just pogo stick up. I was watching that and like, whoa.
Yeah, that's something you haven't seen in a while. I mean, outside of iRacing.
Yeah, he walked away, but then later, Kyle Kirkwood went up and over.
Yeah.
And Jack Harvey did go to the hospital. Haven't heard a follow-up, but
I mean,
it seemed like he was okay. So hopefully he can be back on track next race out.
So I heard a rumor. I have a well-placed I have a well-placed source. So you notice how Jack Harvey last year was driving the 45, the Hy-Vee car. He's not anymore. Lundgaard is driving the Hy-Vee car. I heard through a source that was done on purpose because the sponsorship of Hy-Vee is very, very important to Rahal Lanigan. And with Hy-Vee and how much they put into that Iowa race, Jack Harvey was pretty disappointing last year. Lundgaard, on the other hand, was the rookie of the year.
Yep.
Whoop. Number and sponsor swap.
We've actually seen that before in Andretti Autosport. Rossi and Marco Andretti flip-flop numbers, the 98 and 27.
That's right.
So not uncommon to see in the IndyCar world.
Nope, but it's yeah, I mean, you got to keep the sponsors happy, especially a major sponsor like Hy-Vee. I mean, they're are they a grocery store? What are they? Is it something like that? Is it a grocery store, or is it more like a Meijer or
I think it's similar to a Meijer. Okay. I've been to a Hy-Vee before, but it's been a while. I've been when I've been out in Iowa.
I mean, it's kind of strange that Hy-Vee would put so much into IndyCar because it's not a national brand. There's not Hy-Vees everywhere. But then again, like, I guess you could say the same. Menards did the same thing for years. I mean, the closest Menards to me in Phoenix is in like Wyoming. So
yeah, it's not just a day's drive.
I used to spend a lot of time at Menards when I lived in the Midwest. Not anymore, but
yeah, I have one 30 minutes up the road.
Yeah, I miss having a Menards, but hey, Lowe's is good too. I like having a Lowe's. I mean, at least in my you live out in the middle of nowhere. I don't. I have I have a Lowe's 5 minutes that way. I have a Lowe's 10 minutes that way. No, I have a Lowe's 5 minutes that way. 10 minutes that way. I have a Home Depot 5 minutes that way, and I have a Home Depot 10 minutes that way. I'm all turned around.
Your neighborhood is probably bigger than my town right now.
Probably. I mean, they have an entire elementary school zoned to my neighborhood. So I mean that alone with K through 6. So that alone. But anyway, yeah, I mean it's nice to see companies like Hy-Vee get on board. I mean, obviously I've heard of it, but I mean they've definitely done a lot for their brand awareness. I don't know how much they're really getting out of it beyond that Iowa race, but good for them. I mean, I guess, next time you go to Iowa, I'm like, I'm going to go shop at Hy-Vee.
Oh, and how about that race in Vegas?
It was pretty quiet. Uh,
The Fords did not run well at all.
they did not, which I'm, here with my Ford Mustang shirt. As I'm, for those that don't know, I drive a 10 plus year, 11, yeah, it's almost 11-year-old Ford Fusion. Great car. It's held very well. 115,000 miles on it. Like, I finally had to put money outside of standard maintenance into it for the first time last year. Not a lot though. And I'm slowly starting to look into a new car. I want a car, but nobody makes cars anymore.
Nope.
You could get a Camry, a Corolla, a Jetta, a Malibu. There's some Subaru like Imprezas, and then you get up into the luxury cars, or you go and get yourself a Ford Mustang or a Chevy Camaro. And a certain individual who lives in my household has said that the quote unquote Ford Mustang is not a family car. Any car with two doors is not a family car.
It can be.
I think so. I mean, there's two children sitting in the back. They're not like
The seat folds down, they can get through.
Yeah, like it's not like two-door cars of the 80s or 90s where you gotta pull the crank and jam it forward to get them in. I mean, it's a lot cleaner than that process nowadays. And I said, fine, if you won't let me get a Ford Mustang, I will come home with a white Ford Bronco and embarrass you. And then that way, when your car is in the shop getting worked on, you can drive a white Ford Bronco and run from the cops at 30 miles an hour.
And somehow in the back put wasn't me.
Well, there's a guy. I was telling somebody about this yesterday. There's a mid-90s white Ford Bronco, mint condition. Guy lives in Scottsdale. His official state of Arizona plate says not OJ.
That's so awesome.
I have a photo of it on my Instagram feed. And I walked down like, hey, cool, a mid-90s white Bronco. And I look down and I see the license plate. Like, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Not OJ. And, periodically on social media, the not OJ Bronco pops up on people's accounts. Like, look what I saw today in Scottsdale. But anyway.
Oh, that's great.
Completely off topic. Yeah, Ford did not have a good day in Las Vegas.
And Hendrick pulled off a feat they've now done 3 times.
1, 2, 3. And then Josh Berry covering for the injured Chase Elliott. What did he get? 29th or something like that? It was not a...
Yeah, I think he popped the wall and just kind of struggled after that.
So Chase Elliott needs a medical exemption to become eligible for the playoffs now that he's missed a race. And there was a good argument from Kyle Petty, like why he should get one. It's like, yeah, he was snowboarding, probably shouldn't have been during the season. I'm sure he'll, that'll be in his future contracts.
Yeah.
Never to do that again. But it's like, you have Kyle Petty said, like, you have guys like Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch out there driving go-karts and sprint cars and trucks and Xfinity. They're in the car racing 5-6 nights a week some weeks. And it's like, if Kyle Busch broke his leg in a karting accident, like, what would you say then? I mean, okay, bad example because a lot of people are like, it's Kyle Busch. All right, so Kyle Larson, maybe not, but okay. Somebody else other than those two gets injured driving a sprint car or a cart, in a karting accident, breaks their leg, misses time. Do you give them the medical exemption because it's outside of their duties as a Cup Series driver?
That's a tricky road. And does it kind of lead to the question, would a lesser known driver get that same deal?
Good
Or
point.
is it just because Chase Elliott brings fans into the race?
I mean, he's the most popular driver. He, the anointed most popular driver after Dale Jr. retired.
Like, you tell him you can't do the playoffs, you're gonna probably tick off what,
You're gonna
10,
have the,
15% of your entire fan base.
but I mean, what's the purpose of the medical exemption? I mean, I, if you got in a crash, ended up with a concussion, like, Dale Jr. had in his career, Kurt Busch had last year, because Kurt Busch was eligible. I mean, he had to drop out because he never came back. But if Kurt Busch
Yeah, he won
would
his
have come
race.
back in time for the playoffs, they would have given him an exemption because it was as his duties of a cup driver. And was that the point of the medical exemption? If somebody fell off their ladder cleaning leaves out of their gutter at home, I'm sure their team owner would be like, what were you doing that for? Like, why, you're our prized possession. Please don't do that.
See, having to get that to be able to still qualify for the playoffs, that kind of leads me to question, what is more valuable? Is it just the wins? Or you're saying that you need to do all the races, but only the wins matter? So it almost to me sounds like they're trying to do two different setups.
That's a good point.
Which
Because
to me doesn't work.
One, it's TV ratings too. It's track attendance. If your most popular driver is on the shelf or he's out of the playoff, how many TV viewers are they going to lose?
Exactly.
I mean, you look at any other sport, you that's why people want the big market teams. They want the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the LAs. They want the Yankees in the playoffs every year. They want the Cubs in the playoffs. They want the Dodgers in the playoffs. They're big market, they're important to the ratings for television. Yep. They don't want the Kansas City Royals playing the no offense, the Colorado Rockies. They're not as major of markets.
No, and good example of that, I was when I lived out in Colorado, we were up watching the Cubs at the Rockies. The Rockies were just demolishing the Cubs. That stadium was silent. But when it's not the Cubs and just another team and Rockies are winning, that place is loud.
The same thing.
It just goes to show you.
Here in Phoenix, there's a running joke that they call Chase Field Wrigley West because, one, there's a lot of Illinois transplants here, but a lot of people come to visit. And WGN had a big impact. They, like, before they had a team, they could sometimes get games in LA. So there's a lot of Dodgers fans here, but WGN was the station out here. So there's a lot of Cubs fans, of people who just lived out here for a long time.
Well, and there's a good Chicago following. You have a Portillo's.
Of course, which
not too far there from Mesa.
And there's going to be a Portillo's opening 5 minutes from my house here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, if it works out, I'm going in May.
Just what I need. More Portillo's hot dogs. Hey, you want to sponsor a car, Portillo's?
Anytime I stop by or head down to Kokomo, there's a Portillo's in Fort Wayne, and it's almost a given. I'm stopping once.
That is true. I forgot that. Yeah, they've moved into Indiana quite a bit.
Yeah, there's one down in Westfield now too.
It's funny with, like, you got these novelty, places that people like, and like, oh, I go to the West Coast, so I got to go to In-N-Out Burger. It's like, or I go to the South, I have to go to Chick-fil-A. It's or Chicago, I have to go to Portillo's, and it's like, I have all those within 5 minutes of my house. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll go to In-N-Out Burger today.
Yeah, I had that in Colorado Springs minus Portillo's. I do miss that, but
I do admit, when I first moved here, I went to In-N-Out Burger like 5 times in the first 2 weeks I was here.
That's
it's good. It's good. I like it. I mean, a lot of people are like, it's like, it's. If it was a national chain, it wouldn't be anything special. It's part of it's because it's only in the West Coast or in the South.
I was out in California last December, and I made the stop at In-N-Out. Had to.
I mean, when we came out here to visit before we lived here, that's, we got off the plane, went right to In-N-Out Burger. That's our first stop. Yeah, and a lot of people do. There's a reason why the drive-through line is as long as it is.
Yeah.
lot of free advertising for you. So pony up some of those bucks for us. Your phone lines are open. Please give us a call. We'll have our people talk to your people.
Yeah, we'll run your car, we'll shout you out, and we'll be sure to stop whenever we get a chance.
That's right. We'll go out there and enjoy our post-race victory meal.
You already have customers in us.
On that note, speaking of our racing, we had a interesting Wednesday night dash this week, and
I didn't finish last.
You did finish last, and I didn't either because we had some unfortunate. Let's just say we had some problem with some blinking. If those aren't familiar with the term blinking in iRacing, it's more or less when you have a lousy internet connection and you're the hardest thing about something like racing where you have two cars that are very close together making moves, and you have one person who's in Boston, you have another person who's in LA, you could have a person over in Germany, you could have a person in Australia, all on the same server together, and it's got to kind of guess where you're going to be and make a prediction of it. If that person makes kind of slides because they wore out their tires, and that person halfway around the world has to react to it, will they make contact? And there's a term also used called netcode, where the prediction is made and sometimes the prediction is not correct. And you'll see cars that'll be like 6 inches apart, that there's barely any daylight, but then one car goes spinning, or they both go spinning, but they didn't actually make contact. That being said, we had a problem tonight with the one of the competitors who blinked a lot. And this isn't by any means, this is not meant to trash the driver or criticize them by any means. We're looking at this more of a philosophical discussion, because you have one driver who's competing, you have the rest of the drivers who, a blinking driver, because the internet's not great for them, can be an advantage, because if you've ever watched some of our streams, sometimes you'll see these cars, they look like they're bouncing, they look like they're about to flip over, and you can't line up properly or get in a draft or make your move, because they may appear right on top of you and boom, you're gone. So you have to be extra conservative, and when you're trying to make that move, what do you do? And
if you have a run going into a turn and they blink going in, you don't know if they're going high or low. You kind of got to just sit
anticipate
back.
That. Yeah. And so we had some, there were some upset people I know about tonight, that resulted in some people not finishing as high as they probably otherwise would have. But as league owners, we have to make these tough decisions. We don't really have a rule in place right now. But what do you do? I'd be very interested. We're going to pick the brains of some of the people that we know who've been running leagues longer in the next couple of days. And, it's like, we can't count the number of blinks. Almost everybody will blink at one point or another during, when you're on a server, especially when you have a lot of cars. So it's like, and you can't keep track of it. It's like 10 blinks in your black flag. Like, who's going to keep track? Was that actually a blink? Like, nobody's going to do that. But where do you draw the line of this person is gaining an advantage because their internet connection stinks?
And it's part of our learning and growing process too. And developing this, we're going to encounter different situations, and this is one of those.
So we don't know what we're going to do about it. This person in question is a great driver, very, very skilled driver. We don't want to upset the person. We're having a very public forum discussing this, but I honestly don't know what the answer to this is, and it's a tough one. This is a tough scenario where, whenever you're dealing with something and you have house rules, you're going to run into a scenario where it's like, they just exploited that rule. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes it was it was an accident. But they exploited a rule, and we have to make a rule as a result. It's not clear cut.
In just a standard iRacing race, jump in anything, just at will, you get a blinking car, and usually the radio chatter goes, "Hey, 51, you're blinking." And most of the time, it's all right. Thanks for letting me know.
What do you do about it?
And you just race, and part of it you just kind of hope you
I
don't
mean,
get caught in anything.
and you go back to the iRacing sporting code, which for those who aren't familiar with it, the iRacing sporting code is essentially the rules. It's code of conduct. It's there's various rules. There's rules about how scoring is done, how your rye rating is calculated, how your safety rating is calculated when you drive. And I read the book, but I did not memorize the book. I'm sure very few people can honestly claim to have, but where's I don't know if the code would actually address something like that. I mean, I get as technically argue, is this person being a distraction? Are they ruining the event for someone else? But I
I
don't
feel like
know.
I've seen something on it where if it's intentionally being done to gain an advantage, then it's frowned upon and not allowable. But if it's just what it is, then it's kind of just what it is. I may be incorrect in that, but I feel like I read that in probably the past month.
Yeah.
So we'll do
So,
our homework here.
well, we're gonna do our homework, and again, like we don't, we're not singling the person out. We don't want to embarrass them, or it's just like anybody can have a lousy internet connection. We had an issue in a 3-hour race over the summer that you probably saw on our live stream, that Mark Vickers ended up not being able to race because his internet was like 10% of what it should have been, and he couldn't drive.
Yeah,
So I
he
mean, it's
didn't appear on track almost.
yeah, our excuse me, but yeah, internet in this country sucks. Like our infrastructure is terrible. I mean, part of the problem is this country's so spread out. You can make the same argument about public transit and trains, and it's a problem when a country's that far spread out. But are we really doing enough as a country to address internet? Like for as much as internet and cell phones and everything is required to keep us connected, keep us safe, keep us alive. If it's really weird to think about it. Like, let's just say, you go back to before the late 90s, you go out to the store at night. You might live in, like, if Eric, okay, you live in an area that's not super urban, not urban.
No,
So
it's in the country.
let's just say you need to go out at 10 p.m. and go to Walmart. And this is we'll say 1991. You're driving to Walmart. You don't have a cell phone. Your car breaks down. It's December. It's snowing. It's 5 degrees outside.
You're hoofing it to the next exit with your thumb up.
Yep. Or,
And
worse, on a country road where there's no light.
yep.
It's just like, how did we function as a society before cell phones? It's just, I mean, I was alive for that point. I'm old enough to remember that point, but it's just like,
How nice it would actually be to go back to that, though.
yeah, there are times where I want to take this thing and just chuck it out the window, but
I've been tempted to accidentally lose it in the pool. Sometimes it's like a leash.
there was this thing I saw the other day that the Gen Z, who it's the people born after 2000, are fascinated by what they're calling like Y2K stuff, like Y2K technology. And so these kids are like, I want a flip phone. I'm like, oh, you want to press the 2 button 3 times just to get a C in your text message? Yeah, no, that sucks. I don't want to go back to that. That sucks.
It's funny. I actually want to go back to a flip phone. I would prefer that much more than the mini laptop that you carry.
I mean, I'm so like, I mean, there was so many advantages if that did not happen. Like if I could get out of this thing, but I mean, with banking and it's like if I lose my wallet, my driver's license, the state of Arizona has digital driver's license. So I can pull up a copy of my driver's license on here. I'm not.
Hey, here you go. Yeah, careful there.
Yeah, I know. That's why there was a big glare on it. So, but yeah, it's just technology, man. It's unpredictable. It's great when it works, sucks when it doesn't.
Yep. We've been tossing out enough other places. I ran a new car on the race.
Oh yeah, you did.
Had the Hotel Tango. It's a distillery out of Indianapolis.
Oh really? I didn't know they were from Indiana.
I actually went to their place in Zionsville and had some food, had a great drink, some hot chocolate with their marshmallow bourbon. It was quite delicious.
Speaking of bourbon, our good friends at Player One Coffee have a bourbon flavored coffee now. And they do, I mean, it's coffee beans, it's coffee, ground coffee, but it's like obviously it does not have alcohol in it. Um, but it's
It's gonna
just,
be a nice bold flavor.
yeah,
I'll
oh
be
yeah.
checking that out.
I was thinking about that, but I was advised, like, okay, if you do bourbon flavored coffee, like one, don't do it on a work day. I'm like, what's the matter? There's no alcohol. It's not like there's a breathal. Like one, if they my company made me do a breathalyzer, it would come up as 0.00. Two, like if I go somewhere and I smell like bourbon, yeah, I could see that being a problem. For at least until you blow a 0.00. But I could understand why that could be an issue. But at the same time, if I really wanted to, I'll just go brew a regular Leroy Jenkins Player One coffee and just pour real bourbon in it. And get some Jack Daniels or your friends at the sorry, what was their name again?
Hotel Tango.
Hotel Tango. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah, former Marine opened that up.
it's awesome. So maybe you get some shout outs from them on social media. But I think we're going to get ready and wrap here. So, yeah, be sure to check out Formula One TV. We kind of trash the race a little bit, but still, Formula One TV is awesome. Being able to switch and watch the driver view, and there's the phone app, the tablet app, put it on your streaming TV. It creates a whole new dimension that I guess makes up for the fact that Max Verstappen is 15 seconds up, halfway through the race. But
We
Formula
should
One
make
TV.
we should make one quick mention that we almost forgot.
What's that?
Behind closed doors.
Oh, yeah.
Can't believe we almost forgot this. We have a new league starting up here in April, running on Tuesday nights. It will not be broadcast, however, because we are featuring the Indy cars, the IR18.
See, U.S. Open Wheel Series.
I struggle at times. So it is the Behind Closed Doors Open Wheel Series. We'll have one of the cars that does not have a roof on it. With a 10 race schedule coming up. Should be a lot of fun.
Little bit of road course, but a lot of oval.
7 ovals and 3 road courses for our 10 races.
What are your 3 road courses? Indy, Long Beach.
Indy, Long Beach, and was it Watkins Glen, maybe?
That sounds right. I'll pull the schedule up.
Pretty sure it's Watkins Glen.
The Glen. Oh, Instagram was down earlier, so I couldn't even. Yeah, Instagram was broken earlier tonight. Mid-Ohio.
That's it, Mid-Ohio. What am I thinking? It's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
So we're excited to open that up and use it as a little bit of a testing ground as well and just have a little bit of fun racing.
And on that note, speaking of open wheel, I did it. Here it is. It's not going to make me a better racer, but I'm going to look awesome doing it.
Maybe someday I can pick up one of those.
So the SimMagic FX Pro with the screen on it. I mean, this thing is a beast. So you can get that from our friends at Extreme Sim Racing. They're in stock right now as of the taping of this episode.
And do they have a special code they use?
No, not right now, but there's a link at the bottom of the description where you can go learn more about Extreme Sim Racing and SimMagic. Even though I'm not wearing the hat tonight, the logo is right below me for them. So go check that out. This thing is a beast. And compared to some of the other top brands, this thing is very affordable, relatively speaking. All right. On that note, I think it's time to wrap.
Yeah, we have fun bringing this to you. Look forward to it every week.
Thanks for watching. frracingonline.com, at frracingonline, on all the social media and major streaming platforms. Well, mainly Twitch. But subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. Please do. Thanks for watching.
Take care. Thank you.